All right, we got the green light tonight, so it's wonderful. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. I believe that lesson that we're going to have tonight is one of the most impactful because we're going to be dealing with issues that pertain to leadership in the church. And the men are the leaders of the home, and men are designed to be leaders by their nature. And so this fight that we're in for the very soul of the Church of Christ in America is dependent upon strong men, faithful men, courageous men who are willing to take the challenge and to stand with Jesus Christ and to bring the gospel of Christ to the lost. And so tonight as we begin, I want you to realize that I'm going to treat you like men tonight. I realize the ladies are not among us. And so I'm going to be forthright. I'm going to be strong in my teaching. But I want you to understand I do so because I love the Church of Christ. Brethren, we're facing Mount Everest in the United States of America. And we're looking at a challenge unlike any of our parents, grandparents have ever seen in the kingdom of God. The challenge is that we're fighting an uphill battle. The challenge is that we're fighting in a war for the souls of men and women where our armies are shrinking and the courage of our men is lacking and the example that we're looking for is not here. And so those who fought these battles in the past and won the victor are departing from us at an alarmingly quick rate, and very few of them remaining. I want you to take yourselves back to about the 1940s and 50s in our history when the churches of Christ were the fastest religious growing body in America. In fact, we were growing so quickly that we literally had teams of men. Their only job was to travel this nation and build churches of Christ, the buildings. Have you ever traveled and seen the old A-frame church buildings with the Bible classes on the side, the elongated auditoriums? Well, if you go to a church like this, it's very likely it was going to be built in the 1950s or 60s. We were building them as quickly as we could. We were church planting all over America. And in 1953, something unique occurred when the Dictionary Committee for the American College Dictionary came together. And every year they would look at words and the etymology, but yet the usage, the modern vernacular. A dictionary gives you the modern usage of a word. And so when they came to the word Christian, a proposal was made that they change the definition because something was sweeping across America and the word Christian didn't adequately express it. And so when they got to the word Christian, they adopted the change. And several years ago when I was doing a lectureship with Brother Ronnie Hayes, and he had me come and present 11 lessons on evangelism. There was an older man, he was in his 90s, he was still a tall man. Had a cane and a book. This is the book he held in his hand. He held on to it the entire lectureship. After the lectureship, he walked up and he says, "Preacher," he says, "I've got a gift for you." He said, "Christians have been trying to pry this out of my hands all my life and I wouldn't give it to them." He said, "But I'm going to give it to you, but you've got to use it." And I thought I was getting a treasure. And so he put it in my hand. I looked at it. It says American College Dictionary. And I thought to myself internally, I've got a dozen dictionaries. Why do I need another dictionary? He says, "Oh, it's not any dictionary." He said, "I want you to take it and look at the word Christian." So I opened it up and I turned it until I found the word Christian. And when I found the word Christian, he said, "I want you to begin reading." And I'm actually reading from the word Christian. Pertaining to or deriving from the Jesus Christ or his teachings, not earth-shattering. Believing in or belonging to the religion of Jesus Christ, I don't get it. Pertaining to Christianity, I'm still looking. He says, "Keep reading, preacher." Exhibiting a spirit of Jesus Christ, you're almost there. A Christian is a Campbellite, a member of the Church of Christ. Brethren, we grew so quickly in the 1940s and 50s, and yea, verily even into the 60s, that when they came to the word Christian, they actually changed the definition to reflect the culture, the Church of Christ. I know some of you young men may not be aware of the term Campbellite. I remember the first time I was called a Campbellite, I was 15 years old. I came inside a barber shop, and the barber looked at me. I lived in the country, and he'd seen me around. I just started driving. He said, "Son, what do you need?" I said, "Well, I need a haircut." He said, "Well, sit in the chair." I got in the chair. He says, "Tell me, do you go to church?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Where do you go to church?" I said, "The Northern Oaks Church of Christ." He said, "You waterlogged Campbellite." And I looked at him, and I didn't know what that meant. I went back and I asked my dad. I said, "What does that mean?" He explained it to me. For those of you who are older, you know what that means. You see, the Church of Christ grew so quickly in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s that the only way they could stop your growth was to make fun of you. And so they used terms like this because they couldn't stop your doctrine because it was found in the Word of God, and they were losing members by the boatloads, and the Church of Christ was growing to 2.5 million members. 1 out of every 81 people in this nation was a member of the Church of Christ. And so you would find the culture reflecting the growth of the church. And the reason, young men, they do not call you a Campbellite tonight is because they don't have to. Because most people don't know the difference between a Campbellite or a Christian and a Mennonite. Because we're sitting in our pews, we're declining, our buildings are half full. Our churches are closing every 3 days. A Church of Christ closes her doors. Our membership is plummeting. We barely have 1 million members left. And there's no need for them to make fun of you tonight. And brethren, if we continue to sit in our pews and not get on the offensive, and it is take the blessed message of Christ to the lost and to share with them the beauty of the cross and to show them the value of forgiveness, that we serve a God of second chances. And if you really want to have the abundant life tonight, John 10:10, Jesus says, "I came to give life, and that more abundantly." The American people need to know about that life. Humanity needs to hear that there's a God who gave his son to die for us. And he established a church. And that church is an army of his people. And tonight, my brothers, if we don't stand and be counted and stand in the gap and fight for our Lord Jesus Christ, a spiritual war, not a physical war, a war of morality, a war of ethics, a war of thought, a war of faith, a war that helps humanity overcome the temptation to depart from the living God and to indulge themselves in materialism, which gives nothing back but what's here and now, and prepare them not for an eternity that awaits them. And yet, if we don't stand in the gap and bring the message of hope and salvation to the very people in Springfield, Tennessee, we will lose this war. I want you tonight to be as excited about the gospel of Jesus Christ as you are about your hunting property. I want you to put as much passion into winning souls for Jesus Christ as you would put into your bass boat. I want you to have as much passion tonight for the people in your life that are lost as you do as you go out at 3 o'clock in the morning and you get yourself ready and you get in that deer stand when that weather is way below freezing and you sit there and you wait for the big buck. I want you to have enough passion. I want you to have enough fortitude and strength as you would for the things that you love in your life, the things that God created for you to love. But nothing more precious than the souls of men and women. For God made you in his image. And every human being born is a human being he loves. And brethren, because of Satan and sin, we see that many people are lost. And the hope of Springfield is the hope of the church. And so tonight my message is simple and it's clear. We need men to stand in the gap. The elders are going to need the men of this church to help. Your preachers are going to need help. There's no way you can hire this one out. America is a land of plenty. Money is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And I'm afraid that in America we have tried to buy our way out of every problem we have. And so we send money, and we keep sending money hoping somehow we're going to climb out of this mess. Brethren, money isn't going to help you. What we need are people. We need servants of the living God. And so tonight as I approach the men of the church, I'm asking for men to have courage. I'm asking you to have the courage to lead your home, and lead the church, and lead your community, and to do what God created you to do. God did not create our women to do that. And because men have failed miserably, we have had to have ladies step up and do things they're not designed to do. We need our men to be like Joshua, Joshua chapter 1. God looked at Joshua, he says, be strong and of good courage. Go not to the left nor to the right. Fear not, be not dismayed. Your Lord God fights for you. My friends, tonight when God fights for you, you'll win every time. But he doesn't fight for those who don't fight for him. And if you choose not to fight, if you choose to cower, if you choose to capitulate, if you choose to compromise, if you choose to just go with the flow, I'm telling you tonight that God will let you die. He won't save this building because it's a building. He didn't save Israel because they had the Ark of the Covenant. You remember the Israelites says, oh, don't worry about him. We got the temple. We got the Ark of the Covenant. And the prophets begged them to repent. They said, go down on your hands and knees and repent before God because you're going to suffer. And the false prophets said, oh, Israel, you're fine. Things are going well. You have houses that you did not build, wells that you did not dig, vineyards you didn't plant. Everything's fine. Sounds a lot like us. When those enemies of God came into the Israelite nation, they devoured them. And Israel was made servants of the very people they drove out. And for 400 years, Israel was enslaved because of their sins. History just repeats itself over and over again. Our children, those young boys, are depending on you tonight. Gentlemen, don't let it happen again. There is hope. The hope is if we start changing things at the local church level. Because churches of Christ are autonomous, this has to be done one church at a time. It's got to be done here at Hillcrest, and then it's got to be done at Rivergate. And then we got to go over and we got to do it at another church. We go down maybe south of Nashville, we do it at another church, and we keep going and we keep changing. And we reach out into our communities. And you say, preacher, do you really think that we can convert everybody? No, we won't. Because your Lord said, broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be that go in thereat. And he said, narrow is the way that leads to life, and few there be that find it. Tonight, brethren, I want you to realize that all we're asking you to do is reach the few. You're going to have to go to the many to find them, but you're just going to get a few. We're never going to win the numbers game. God has never won the numbers game. But I believe there are a few people in Springfield, Tennessee that can be saved. And the good news tonight is if we can reach a few, and we can find the honest hearts tonight, and we can reach them with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Do you know what a few does to Hillcrest? What will happen if you just save a few at Hillcrest? You'll fill the building. That's with a few. What I want to do tonight is I want to give you a congregational plan for growth. I'm going to do it at the 10,000 foot level. It's not going to be organized. It's not going to be mechanized. I'm not going to detail it. I'm just going to give you a 10,000 foot view. Tonight after this lesson, I'm going to meet with your elders, preachers, maybe a few others, and we're going to mechanize it. And for everything to be successful, there's got to be a model, a method, and a mechanism. And so you got to have a model of success. Those models got to be simple. It just shows you where you're going. Every company out there has got a successful model. Ford has a model somewhere. All over their factory, there's a model for how they're going to produce whatever it is they're producing. Chick-fil-A has a model, and they follow it meticulously. I shared that model with you during this seminar. I've again and again emphasized it's just 6 steps: contacts, prospects, Bible studies, baptisms, new converts, a growing church. Just a simple model. Then we got to look at the methods, and I'm going to look at some of those tonight, things that we can use to be successful as we understand that model. How do we get contacts? How do we prospect contacts? How do we study the Bible? Because we got to be prepared for success. Success isn't an accident. Success isn't something you just accidentally happen upon. If you succeed in a test, you prepared for the test. If you succeed at a ball game, you prepared for the ball game. If your football team is victorious, you prepared to be victorious. If you go out there and get the big buck, I guarantee you prepared for the big buck. You put out the food plot. You got your Wi-Fi cameras going. You got your stand set up. You got the land just like you want it. You know what time he comes. You've been monitoring him for months. He hasn't a prayer. You even know what time he eats. You got cameras everywhere. And so you get out there and you prepared to get the big buck. You know the angle, you know the shot, you know when you're going to take it. Everything has been prepared. It's not luck. It's rarely luck. Well, if you're going to succeed, brethren, it won't be because of just blind luck. Build it and they will come is not working very well. Brethren, they're not coming. I mean, if a church building in a location could cause you to grow, I would suggest you'd be growing. You have a beautiful building. You have a beautiful location. You got great people. You have comfortable pews. My father-in-law said, I like those pews. They're comfortable. All right, so that's not why people aren't coming. But yet we've got churches today, and they think somehow if we build this, this wonderful, it's like a palace. You walk in. In fact, we have some today that think, well, our growth problems is due to aesthetics. If we get rid of the pews, put a stage in front, get colored lights, put the coffee bar in the back, have some lounge chairs, we'll grow. May I suggest that's not a strategy for New Testament growth. The coffee bar isn't going to be the reason you grow. Maybe the reason you don't. And getting rid of pews and putting in chairs and putting clear pulpits in and all the other things that people are doing. I don't know that they're necessarily sinful, but I'm just suggesting that's not a growth strategy. Nowhere in the New Testament do you find things like that. You know what you find? Contacts. You got to meet people. You got to equip the saints. You got to train your people. 2 Timothy 2:2. Turn your Bibles, gentlemen. Let's look at it together. 2 Timothy 2:2. It's a passage that our schools of preaching placard all over their devotional halls and classrooms. But it's really a verse that should be placard in our auditoriums. In 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul says to Timothy, he says, the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who should be able to teach others also. Brethren, how many of you tonight, I've got a question. How many of you tonight have ever been to a training class at work to teach you how to do something? Anybody here ever been to, how about at school, a training class to teach you how to, anybody ever been to one? How many of you have been required to go to another city, another location, and another state? Anybody here, I'm curious, is anybody in the audience tonight been flown to another country for training? Anybody? I usually find one. Normally they work for Toyota. And I'm going to guarantee if you get into management at Toyota, you're going to Japan. You will learn to do it their way. Companies, my father was in charge of the training department in Delta Airlines. And he every now and then he would tell me a little bit about the mechanisms, the details. And he would talk to me about the incredible amount of money they spent preparing their people and training their people and making sure everything had a place. There was a place for everything. Every I was dotted. Every T was crossed. Training's important, isn't it? I remember my first job was a bag boy at Albertson's grocery store. And before I could ever bag one thing, they took me to training class and showed me, don't put the eggs and the milk in the same bag. And I watched it, and I know you don't know this, a VHS. They put one of those VHSs, and I watched how to bag groceries. And even for bagging groceries, I had to be trained. Then I was trained how to run a register. Then I was trained how to stock groceries. Then I was trained how to cut meat. Then I was trained how, and I just, every department, they trained me how to do something. Gentlemen, you're going to be trained the rest of your life. Now let's bring this home to the church. You ready? When's the last time you went to a training class that taught you what to do when a visitor walks in the door? Has anybody ever went to a training class at church and the purpose of the class, not a sermon, a training class, and say, okay, we got visitors coming and we need to figure out what do we say, what shouldn't we say? We need to figure out what our end game is. How are we going to get there? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us how to have a gospel conversation with somebody at a restaurant, like a waitress or a waiter? When's the last time we had a training class on what to do when a new mover comes into our community and settles in? How do we approach them? What do we do? How do we engage them? When's the last time we had a training class that taught us what to do when a new convert, comes out of the watery grave? What's our plan to keep them? How are we going to make sure they don't fall away? What's our plan to make sure that they grow? What's our plan so that we can get the contacts in their life? A new convert has more contacts than all of us combined because they have mothers and fathers and neighbors and children. They have co-workers. They have contacts you don't have. So, brethren, here's what it's going to take. You're going to have to be trained. And it's going to be a little different. And the elders might come and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we need your help with this. Will you help us? You might have to sit through a few minutes of training to learn how to do something. When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us how to knock a door? You want to know why we're so unsuccessful knocking doors? Have you ever seen us do it? No wonder we're unsuccessful. No wonder we fail. It's almost an unmitigated disaster. We show up at a building, they give you a gospel meeting flyer, and they say, go invite people to the meeting. The success rate of that is almost below 1%. It's a terrible success rate. I'm not opposed to gospel meetings. I love gospel meetings. But I'm just saying, if that's your door-knocking strategy, you can do something far more successful. I'm not opposed to door knocking. I think it's wonderful, and I think when trained properly, it can be very effective. But once again, it's training. So, gentlemen, let's begin tonight. Number one, are you on? If you have your Evangelism Simplified Guidebook, I said 125. Is that what I said? 123. 123. Let's begin. First thing we're going to have to do. Well, I think we have the wrong lesson up. The lesson should be Advanced 1. It should be Advanced 1. And if you guys can grab that lesson off the screen, the first thing you got to do is you got to get the equipment. So you guys go to work, and I guarantee that your job provides you guys the equipment you need to succeed. So if you need a skid steer for your job, they're going to get you one. If you need an iPad, you need a laptop. If you need IT equipment, if you need tools, mechanical tools, electrical tools, they provide them. And they do so because if you're in a lawn mowing company, they make sure you got a mower and a weed eater. I mean, we always have the equipment. Brethren, the first thing we've got to do is make sure we have the equipment. If we're going to have Bible studies, we need Bible study booklets. If we're going to do Bible studies, we need Bibles. There was a congregation in our school, and I read about it this week, and they said they went to a local community event. And what they did is they asked the people in the community, do you have a Bible? 127 families had no Bible in their home in America. Now, we'll spend how much money sending Bibles to India? How much money do we sending Bibles all over the world? We got people in our own community that don't even have a Bible. And so we're going to have to get Bibles. And I know that that's a novel idea because we've never really passed out Bibles before, but yet we got people all over the community that don't even have one. We got to have different methodologies, whether it be the open Bible study, back to the Bible, doesn't matter, searching for truth, but we got to make sure our people have equipment. We got to make sure they have materials and training to bring people, to keep people, for new converts, things to go into the community. Brethren, most churches of Christ have all the equipment they need to have coffee. Think about it. You got your coffee pot, got your coffee stirs, got your coffee cup, you got your coffee creamer, you got your coffee stirs, you got your coffee grinds, your coffee filters. We got everything we need for our coffee. And when it comes to our Bible classes, oh man, we're loaded. We got Astrobrite paper, cardboard paper, poster board paper, copy paper, crayons, markers. We got glue sticks, scissors, and don't forget the safety scissors. We got those too. And we got everything we need for our Bible classes. I'm asking, do we have what we need to bring the lost to Christ? I want to tell you a true story. I walked into a church one day, and I was early, and the elder was there, and I said, hey, brother, let's pretend I'm one of your members. And he said, okay. And I have a neighbor, and I want to do a Bible study. And I said, I need some materials. You got something for me so I can do a Bible study? He said, let me see. He said, preacher, follow me. And we went down this long hallway, and he's popping on the light switches. And we finally got to the end of the hall. He brought out his keys. He opens the door. We walk in. He says, "Preacher, they're in here somewhere." And he said, "There they are." We walked to the end of the room, and they were in the locker. Of course, it was locked. Don't worry, we brought out the ring of keys. We brought it out the second time. We went through all of them. We finally opened the locker. He pulls out a set of Back to the Bible, and this is what he told me. He said, "Preacher, we knew you were coming. We have the Back to the Bible." I said, "Wonderful. I need to hold a Bible study locked in a room and locked in a locker." And he looked at me, and this is what he said. "Oh, we were afraid they might get them." Isn't that the point? Don't we want them to get them? We want, brethren, we have to get the equipment, and we got to make sure our members are supplied. I had a church call me last year, and God was really upset. And I said, "Brother, calm down a little bit. Tell me what's happened." He said, "Brother, you were here a year ago. We have thousands of dollars of evangelism materials." He says, "I got a little girl in my class. I'm teaching the teenagers, Vacation Bible School. At the end of the class, we talked about evangelism on the last night. She comes up to me and tears are in her eyes. And I said to her, 'What's wrong?' She says, 'All I want to do is teach my daddy the gospel.' And she said, 'Do you have anything you can give me?' He said, 'You know, Brother Rob was here about a year ago, and he went to one of the deacons. He says, 'Hey, do we got any of those Back to the Bibles?' He said, 'We're around here somewhere.' And for the next 10 minutes, they did a church-wide search for them, and they couldn't find them. And finally, they opened up a closet, and buried in a closet, they found a few sets of Back to the Bible." Brethren, if we can't equip our people to have Bible studies, woe are we. Number two, put it out there where they can get them. One of the first things I like to challenge this church to do is to set up an evangelism table in your foyer. I want you to set up a table just for evangelism. I'll give you a picture of what they look like. You put a nice skirt on it, make it look nice, put your church logo on it, and put on that table the tools that are needed for you to reach the lost. Let your members have at it. Let your members take whatever they want and say, "Listen, we got Back to the Bible, whatever it is you want. Doesn't matter. We got Believe the Bible. We got door hangers. We've got QR codes for digital studies. We've got bookmarks. We got illustrations. We've got what it takes. Set up your table." The brethren are not going to the library. Brother Wendell Winkler once said, "The most neglected room in the church is the baptistry. The second is likened unto it. It's the library." And we use both of them seldom. Your members are not going to dig through a library to find this stuff. Don't lock it in a locker. Put it out there in the front and allow your members to get what they need. Establish a coordinator and say that your job is just to make sure we got equipment for our membership. You don't need a team for this one. You just need one person who says, "I'll make sure we've got equipment. I'll make sure that our table's got what it takes." If we're going to hide this in the preacher's office or lock it in the elder's filing cabinet, I guarantee they're not going to get it. It's fundamental. Number two, we just put it out there where they can get them. I was at a church, and I left, and the preacher set up the evangelism table, and he came back the next day, and it was gone. And the preacher said, "Well," so he put it out again. He put more material out. He came back the next day. It was gone. He called me. He said, "Brother Whitaker, we got a problem. I put the evangelism material out twice, and both times it's gone." I'm a very optimistic person, so I said, "Brother, that's wonderful. The brethren are hungry. They're taking it." He said, "Oh, Rob, no, that's not what's going on." He said, "I thought we might have a problem, so I called one of the leaders. And I said, where is the evangelism material going?" He says, I put a table out there, and do you know where it's going?" He said, "You mean that gaudy-looking table you put out there?" Now, when we built this $2 million facility, we agreed that only authorized things go in the foyer. Now, one of the ladies saw that gaudy-looking table, and she said, "That's not on the authorized list. It doesn't match the decor, and so we've got to move it." Now, we don't want to have problems at this church, especially with the ladies, and so we decided to put it in the coat closet. And the preacher said, you mean you put the evangelism materials in the coat closet?" He said, "Yes, they won't be in anyone's way there." And so the preacher knew that one of the upcoming lessons was to preach on the materials needed to evangelize. And so he got in the pulpit. He said, "Brethren, go get them. They're in the coat closet. Go get them." And he said, Rob, I stood outside that coat closet. I opened the door. I just waited for someone to come in and get something. Guess how many people got the materials? Brethren, if we can't put evangelism materials in our foyers because it doesn't match the decor, maybe we should sell the building and go home. This is not home interior. Brethren, this isn't home decorator. This is the church of Christ. You're soldiers in an army. And our job is to equip our people and make sure when they leave this building, they've got what they need to reach the lost. And I knew very few churches doing that. Don't worry, we've got our coffee. You'd be shocked at what I see when I walk into some churches. Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm in a Starbucks or Church of Christ. They'll have a meltdown if the coffee runs out. Number 3, we got to provide training. We got to train people how to use them. Brethren, you can have a stack of Bibles from here to the ceiling. You could have a room full back to the Bibles to do you no good if your brethren don't know how to use them. I spent some time with Johnny and Tim. We had a couple hours today. Just thoroughly enjoyed. I loved your preachers. I love your elders. Talked to some of them last night, and they met me early. And these are men of vision. These are men that are here because they have some training and they understand the value of it. How many of you have been in the military? Anybody here been in the military before? And every person that's enlisted, signs up, whatever it is, you're in the military, there's something that everyone, I don't care if you're Navy, Army, Marines, there's something that all of you have to do. Y'all know what it is? What do you got to go to? Everybody does it. Basic training. Everybody goes to basic training. Do the generals go to basic training? Yep. Do the people who drive the tanks go to basic training? Yep. Do the fighter pilots go to basic training? Yep. Do the snipers go to basic training? Yep. Everybody goes to basic training. May I submit that what we need in our churches is a little basic training. I'm not asking you to be a sniper. I'm not asking you to be a ranger. I'm not asking you to drive a tank. But I'm asking you just to learn the basics. And so therefore, take a basic Bible study like Back to the Bible, put it into the hands of every single member, preach through it, take a few weeks, and train the members how to use it. You know what happens when the members learn how to use a tool like Back to the Bible? Guess what happens when the members learn how to use it? Just guess. They use it. They call. And they say, Johnny, I've got a problem. Well, what is it? I've got a neighbor who wants to be baptized, and I've never done this before. And Johnny says, I'll be there as soon as I can. It's the best phone call you'll get. One of the reasons our members are not participating is because they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. No one has ever trained them. They have no clue how to do it. And so while we're training preachers in preaching schools and universities and giving them all sorts of wonderful training, our members sit in the pews and they don't know how to do it. You got to train your members. Sometimes people ask, Rob, if you had in a nutshell, just boil it down for me. Give us the short version. What do we need to do to grow? Train, train, train. I know it's not exciting. I know you thought I had a magic wand. I was going to wave it, jump up and down and, give you a prayer formula every day, point you towards Jerusalem. No, I don't have any of that. None of that works. Train, train, train. Train your people. Put a tool in their hand. Show them how to use it. Put everybody through. Anybody know Cliff Goodwin? Y'all know James Watkins, Brother James Watkins, right? Brother James Watkins passed away. You know he named his replacement? He named his replacement. He said, I want Cliff Goodwin. And they called Cliff and they said, James Watkins wants you to replace him. Brother James Watkins has a reputation. He's one of the, we talked about losing some of those men. Who's going to fill their shoes? Tom Holland, James Watkins. And so Cliff Goodwin is on the air every Sunday morning preaching the gospel is the program. It's on television. You can turn it on. It's social media. And he named him. So Cliff calls me and he says, hey, Rob, he said, would you come over here to Ironitan and do the congregational training? I said, I'd be glad to, Cliff. Cliff's a personal friend. Our families have actually vacationed together. And so I love him. And I said, but I'll be honest, I look up to him. Even though he's a little younger, he's maybe a year younger, I still look up to him. He's an amazing preacher. And I'm there at the church, and, we go through the entire seminar. I say, hey, Cliff, if you'll take some time and train the church how to use back. He said, I'll do it. So he does it, and several months go by, and I'm on the phone. I say, Cliff, give me an update. How are things going? He said, man, Rob, he said, I haven't seen this many baptisms. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, we have more baptisms. And I said, well, Cliff, I knew you could. You're so talented. He said, Rob, you're not getting it. I'm not doing it. He said, I got a bunch of widow ladies, and we've taught them how to use a Bible study method, and they're converting their friends. My daughter Kinley's had 3 of her friends. In fact, she converted one of her workmates at the Cracker Barrel. He says, Rob, I've never seen anything like it. The members are doing it. What happens when the members are doing it? Number 4, you got to create an evangelistic atmosphere in your church. You've got to do it. North of Birmingham is one of the largest churches of Christ. They had close to 2,000 members, kind of like the Madison Church in Nashville. And Brother Jenkins, he's passed away, was known as one of the great soul winners. And some of the elders still remember Brother Jenkins. Now, these men are older. They weren't, they were younger at that point. And I asked one of them, I was in the church has gone from like almost 2,000 to 300. And I said, brother, and I said, you had one of the greatest soul winners in our church as your preacher, and that's why you grew. It was Deerfoot Park. And I said, do y'all remember, what is it that Brother Jenkins did that made this church grow? What is it? And one of the elders looked at me and he said, it's the funnel. I said, what is that? He says, he called it the evangelism funnel. He said he put it in everything we did. Every vacation Bible school was about evangelism. Every water giveaway was about evangelism. Every kidney screening was about evangelism. Everything we did was about every trick or trunk we did was about evangelism. Every activity was, and we meet and talk about how can we make this evangelistic. Every backpack drive was evangelistic. And you say, Rob, how do you make a backpack drive evangelistic? I'll tell you. At the Carnes Church of Christ, about a year and a half ago, Brother Spencer, one of the elders, called me and he says, Rob, you're coming to train us? I said, yes, sir. And you're going to do that big campaign? I said, we are. He said, Rob, we're thinking about a backpack drive. We really think we can get you contact. I said, I think you're right. He said, Rob, we've got one of the deacons in charge, but we know you probably have some ideas about evangelistic backpack drives. When you get here, talk to him. I said, okay. And so they arranged the meeting. I sat down. He said, Brother Whitaker, I want to show you what this church has done. He takes me over to a room. He opens it up, and inside that room, there were more crayons, scissors, and backpacks than every Walmart in Knoxville. I have never seen so many school supplies. And I said, Brother, I said, where did you get this? He said, the members. They've donated. I said, wow. And I said, well, he said, we got about 700 backpacks. 700 backpacks. I said, that's great. He said, I think we can get them all out on Saturday. He said, in fact, these orange cones, we're going to rope off the parking lot. He says, we're going to put them through. We got a little track we're going to put in each backpack. We're going to have them drive up, give them the backpack, tell them, invite them to church. I said, what do you think, Brother Whitaker? I said, man, I love your heart. I love your passion. I'm so thankful you're doing this. Could I tweak it just a little bit? They said, sure. What's your suggestion? I said, I'd put all the backpacks in the Bible classes. Why would you do that? I said, because we want them inside the building. Number 2, I'd put your members here in the foyer, and I'd do an open house, and I'd have the members take them through the church building and show them this beautiful place. And then I'd have a fellowship hall with food, and I'd sit with them and get to know them and talk to them and find out where they live and find out if there's anything we can do to help them and listen to them. Then I'd escort them to the car. Brother Whitaker, we can't give out 700 backpacks like that. I said, I know, but you'll have a Bible study the same night. And they did. And they have baptized over 75 people in the last year and a half. Alan Webster sent me a text. He said, Rob, I was just at Carnes. He says, they're still doing it, Rob. He said, I've never seen a church more excited in my life. He says, it's unbelievable to see the change in that church. Brethren, you got to make it's not about the backpacks, Brother White. It's just not. It's about the Bible study. It's not about the Reese peanut butter cups. And I know when we give out free Reese peanut butter cups, the entire community comes because they're $2 a piece. But it's not about the Reese peanut butter cups. And it's got to be evangelistic. So that funnel, you stick it in everything you do. Down at Northern Oaks in San Antonio, Mel Hutzler preaches there. I said, Mel, you baptize 20 people a year. Where do you do this? He says, Bible class. I said, explain it. He said, well, Rob, we have them come into the, we get benevolent requests all the time. We don't help anybody with benevolence unless they come to the building. But not only that, they got to come to Bible class. So they have to come. I said, you make them come? He said, yes, no help unless come to Bible class. I said, okay. He said, it works. They'll walk in and visitors walk in. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's not a member, we've got members of the church standing by. And they'll come up and talk to them, get to know them, and say, hey, we got an introductory class here for our church that tells you a little bit about us. It's right over here in room 1. My wife and I teach it. Would you like to come? And we bring them in. And just so happens, as they walk into the class, they have these little booklets prepared. They're called Back to the Bible. Has anybody heard of these yet? All right, and so then they break them out and they do it. I said, Mel, are you telling me that you're doing Bible studies during Bible class? He said, yes. I tell this story in every church. And I had one man raise his hand. He said, preacher, are you sure it's scriptural to do Bible studies in Bible class? Brethren, if you can't do Bible studies in Bible class, maybe we should just go home now. Of course we can do Bible studies in Bible class. It's not conventional, Brother Whitaker. We've never done it like that. Look around. Maybe it's time we change. Not your doctrine. But I don't know anything in the Bible that would forbid me to sit down with Stubborn and study the Word of God. Do you? How simple. If we just have a few stations around the church and have so few families prepared to do Bible studies during Bible class. That's a cultural change, isn't it? It won't happen accidentally. You'll have to have a very organized approach, but it will work. But I could stay here in number 4 for the rest of the night. I'm just trying to say that we've got to change our culture. We've got to promote evangelism in everything we do. We can't go back. One elder told me recently, he said, Rob, I look back when you were here. And with tears in my eyes, he said, son, I hope we never go back. Please never let us be who we were again. Let's move forward. He says, the people that have been baptized in this church, it's been incredible. I never want to go back. I hope that's what you'll say. Benevolence. How many of us recognize any of these pictures? Because that's what churches do, right? We give out backpacks and we give out coats and we give out vouchers and we have blessing boxes. And at the end of the day, if you counted up all your baptisms, how many do you have? Put the funnel in it, brethren. Put the funnel in it. I've got a lot of ideas I could share with you. Her name's Kim. So Kim called the building and she said, we need some help. I need some food. And Miss Deborah Rice said, well, we do that on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock. Oh, I can't get there on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Deb said, it's okay, we do it at 10 o'clock again. Oh, I can't get there at 10 o'clock. She says, no problem. We do it on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. Oh, I can't get there Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. She says, no problem. She says, do you have a car? No, we'll come pick you up. Oh. So we picked her up. Deb Rice brought her to the church building, and when she got there, and she introduced me to her, Nicole and I sat with her, got to know her, got her contact information, gave her the visitor bag, and then we said, Miss Kim, we got a little custom here. Guess what it is? Anybody know what I'm going to do? Anybody? Let's go out to eat. So I took her out to eat to get to know her. And then Miss Kim, I said, Miss Kim, I understand you need some groceries. She says, I do. I said, well, let's go get them. So we went to get some groceries, and we went over to her place, and I learned that her home was mold infested. It was a government housing, and they had not treated it properly. It was mold. I said, Miss Kim, do you have any illnesses? Ever since I moved in, I've got this breathing problem. I said, I can understand why. I said, let me make a few phone calls. We did. They had a new place opening up. I said, Miss Kim, we got you a brand new place. She says, Rob, I'm disabled. I can't move it. I said, that's okay. The men of the church will move you. 4 men, trucks and trailers, showed up on a Saturday morning with the teenage boys, and we moved her. And as I was sitting in the couch, tears were coming out of her eyes as we were setting up her bed. We were setting up everything. I looked over at Kim, and I used my transition questions. Y'all remember what they are? Number 1, Miss Kim, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? What do you think she said? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Number 2, Miss Kim, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? She says, no, I really don't. I said, Miss Kim, Would you like to know more? She said, I sure would. I just so happen to have these little booklets. And I had my Bible. Well, I have 3. And we began. That's the picture for becoming a member of the church. It's not hard. Number 5. I probably won't get past this point. I know you're looking at your watch saying, man, we're just now on point 5. We won't get past here. I'm just telling you, we won't. Because most of the work you do in evangelism is right here. This involves everybody. You might be sitting in the pew and you might be thinking, Rob, I'm a little quiet. And maybe some of you are honest enough to say this, I'm a little awkward. Some of you are sitting there and saying, Rob, I get tongue-tied. I don't know what to say. I said, okay. Not everybody has to lead a Bible study. It's all right. If that's not your wheelhouse, that's okay. We're not going to ask a punter to be a linebacker, nor are we going to ask a lineman to be a quarterback. All right? We're going to put people where they belong, right? But you know what? Everybody can do this. Everybody can bring somebody. Everybody. No one's exempt from this. Everybody's responsible for bringing somebody. Whether it's a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, or a family member. Jesus said the first commandment is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And the second is likened unto it, to love what? Tell me, to love what? To love who? To love thy neighbor as thyself. Brethren, you're going to stand before the God of heaven and earth someday, and He's going to judge you on those 2 commandments. Now, have you loved your neighbor? Have you ever brought one, just one? Have you ever gone up to Johnny and said, hey, Johnny, I'm not good like you are with this stuff, but I got a neighbor, and would you help me? That's music to your ears. Hey, Tim, I got this friend, and Tim, would you help me? Hey, to the elders, hey, I got somebody here. I just don't know how to do it. Would you help me with it? I mean, we're not asking you to be a preacher. We're just asking you to love people. I mean, we just be genuine, brethren. Let's not go through the motions on Sunday morning, check our box and go home. It was not until several years ago that a preacher friend of mine revealed something to me that I never thought about. He said, Rob, do you know in Matthew 7:21, not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. That verse, Rob, do you know who Jesus is talking to? I said, never really thought about it. Christians. Not everyone. Not everyone. Brethren, there's more to Christianity than showing up on Sunday morning. I'm dealing in this seminar with the centerpiece of Christianity. That's what I'm doing. I mean, this is what we do. If our goal in our life is not to bring people to Christ, then what is it? And why are we living? If we're just checking boxes on Sunday morning, no wonder our youth are leaving us. Because they see right through that. Because they say, what's my purpose? I get calls all the time from parents of young men like this. Hey, Rob, we're losing our youth. How do we keep them? Should we hire a youth minister, college minister, a second one? I said, no, I don't think that's going to work. I don't. They said, well, how do we keep them? I said, give them purpose. Teach them their mission. Turn them into soldiers. Show them how to win souls. Teach them how to convert people. Show them how to love their friends. Make a soldier out of them. Brethren, I'll guarantee you one thing. If you teach your young men and young women how to be soldiers in the army of Christ, and they go out into the field, and they bring one back, and they convert somebody, you show me a young person to convert somebody that falls away, it don't happen very often. Because when they do that, they're Christians for life. Because they know their purpose. Our churches think that we have to entertain our kids in order to keep them. They don't have to be entertained. They need to be turned into soldiers. Let's make young men out of them, strong soldiers. Show them how to love their neighbors and bring them to Christ. Get them involved in evangelism. You know, some of the greatest evangelistic work in a church can be done by these young men. Teach them how to do it. Sometimes I've seen whole congregations turn around because a youth group is on fire. And they keep bringing people and bringing people and bringing people. And we actually wake up some of the adults and say, well, we better do it too. When I was growing up in Northern Oaks, our youth group went from 4 to 24. In a matter of just a couple years, and every one of them was converted. We just kept converting people. In fact, one of my best friends we converted, his name's Robert Newman, and I liked his mom because his mom went to every soccer game, and I'm a soccer player. And my mother and her became friends, and we converted her too. She's still faithful, lives in Houston, Texas. It's amazing what happens when you engage a church like that. But you can't do it without contacts. So let me go. First thing I'd do is I'd advertise your church. Maybe you haven't realized this or not, but you're not necessarily off a major highway. And it'd be real easy to live in Springfield and never know you're here. I mean, it would be easy to live in Springfield, Tennessee and not know there's a Hillcrest Church of Christ. Do you know how that is? Do you know why? Because I didn't. Man, I didn't know you were here. I'm glad. I've told so many people. I've called Alan Webster. I've called Matt Wall. I said, brethren, I have found this church in Spring. I am so excited about this church. Did you guys know this church was here? Because these brethren are faithful. They love God. I said, I'm so glad I found them. I didn't know they existed. Brethren, you have to advertise. You have to promote the church. And because the people, if they don't know you're here, they're not coming. And so one of the things we encourage churches to do is advertise their presence in the community. But you got to do it right. You can't just use it as a flippant mailer. You got to strategically use it. And we'll teach you how to do it. And so you advertise your presence. And you know what happens? This happens. So I'm sitting in the pews. I look over my left shoulder, and this woman walks in, and she sits down. I walked up to Alan Webster. I said, Alan, who is that? He says, I don't know. So I walked in behind her after the closing prayer. She popped up. She turned around. I said, ma'am? I said, my name's Rob. I said, it's nice to have you this morning. Are you visiting? She said, I am. I said, from the community? She said, sure am. I said, well, great. We're glad you're here. Ma'am, can I ask you, what did you think about the worship service this morning? She says, I loved it. I said, why? She said, that preacher of yours sure does love the Bible. I said, yes, Alan loves the Bible. And I said, well, Miss Ellen, are you alone? No, my husband, well, he got sick, had to go home. And I said, I'd love to meet your husband. What's his name? Perry. I said, well, my wife is Nicole. And Miss Ellen said, well, do you guys happen to have an evening service? Glad we weren't closed. I said, yes. I said, yes, we do. And she says, well, I'll bring him back. And so that night they come, we sit with them, we get to know them, we get their contact information. And I said, Perry and Ellen, I just so happen to have a little custom here at this church. Guess what it is? Would y'all like to go out to eat? And I looked at Perry. I said, what's your favorite restaurant, Perry? He said, Afina's. Oh, wow. Afina's. I said, yes. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll take you to Afina's. He said, you take me to Afina's? I said, sure. We can get to know each other. He said, well, man, if I'm going to Afina's, I want to eat. Stomach's a little queasy tonight. Can I take a rain check till Tuesday? I said, absolutely. And so I made reservations, and they walked into Afina's. We sat around the table, and we began our introductory questions. I'm trying to find a little bit more about him. And one of the introductory questions is, what do you like to do? He says, man, I love sports. I said, I do too. I said, would you like to watch NFL football? Then he looked at me and said, no, I don't watch that anymore. They're disrespectful. Me too, I don't watch. I said, do you like to watch basketball? Bunch of thugs. Don't watch that anymore. I said, me neither. I don't watch it either. I said, Perry, what do you watch? He said, Rob, he said, it's all in college. I said, I know. And he said, Rob, he said, I tell you what, Rob, every time it comes on, I watch it. I said, what is it? He said, Rob, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. If I've got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. Brethren, I don't care. Open your Bibles right now. Everybody open your Bibles. Let me show you why. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. Let me show you why I said that. You say, Rob, are you being genuine? I couldn't be more genuine. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Everybody go to verse number 19. For though I be free from all men, yet I have made myself a servant unto all, and that I might gain more. Verse 20, 1 Corinthians 9, unto the Jews I became a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them under the law is under the law. Verse 21, verse 22, to the weak became I weak, that I might gain the weak. I have become all things to all men, that some might be saved. I don't care what team I've got to root for, because all I want is them to go to heaven. Brethren, don't die on Mount Sports Team. It's not worth it. I said, Perry, I said, I'm so sorry that Alabama's not going to be in the championship game tomorrow. The next day was actually the college championship game day, Monday night. And he said, I am too, Rob. It's terrible. We got cheated, Rob. And I said, I know, Perry. Perry, are you going to watch the game? He said, I wouldn't miss it. Perry, it just so happens tomorrow night that we're going to have a football party at my house. Oh, what in the world was that? That was my wife kicking me because she did not know about this party. I said, yes, we're having a party. My wife is cooking. And I said, I want you to come on over. And she looks at me, and Ella says, Miss Nicole, can I bring something? She says, no, I got everything prepared. And you know what that means on the way home. And so she looks at me on the way home. She said, what party and who's cooking for the party? I said, well, that's a minor detail, honey. I said, but we're going to have a Bible study. I just know it. And so we got everything set up. We're sitting in the living room, and we're talking, and it's a blowout. It's halftime. I said, Perry, can we talk? Yeah. I said, Perry. Why Jacksonville? Like, why? I'm really curious, like, what brought you to us? He said, well, 21 years ago, you guys started sending us this publication called House to House, Heart to Heart. You probably don't know this, but every time I got it, I read it. He said, I love it. I said, why? He said, because it's all about the Bible. He said, our church doesn't follow the Bible anymore, Rob, and we're looking for a church that does. I said, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? He says, I do not. I said, would you like to know more? He said, I really do. Perry, you're just in luck. Let me see if I got them. I just so happen to have these little booklets. And I said, would you like to sit down and open a Bible? Oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. John 8:32. And we began. And we baptized Perry, Ellen. Oh, but we're not done. Because he's got a son. And then we baptized him and his wife. It's wonderful when you evangelize. You got to create events. I think you guys do a good job with events. I noticed your sign. You're looking to get into the community. But community's got to know the events taking place. You've got to promote. And we'll do that for you. We'll put your event right on the back page. Your trunk or treat, your vacation Bible school, your homemade ice cream social, your kidney screening, whatever it is. We'll let the whole community know you're doing it. We'll give away things. We give away free things like posters and books and materials on marriage. In fact, we had one lady call, and she says, hey, I saw that you guys were giving away some marriage material. She said, can I get some of that material? Miss Deb says, yes, what's your address? And Miss Deb calls me, and she says, Rob, I got a contact. I said, would you like to go give it to him? We never mail things. I said, yes. So we went to the door, knocked. Always bring a woman. Never go alone. Never go alone. Always bring a woman or a child. My wife's right there. Oh, yes, ma'am. My name is Rob. This is my wife, Nicole. We're from House to House, Heart to Heart. And you requested some marriage materials from the publication. Oh, yes. She said, I would love to get some of that material. Oh, I said, well, I brought you a bunch of it. Oh, well, thank you. I said, nothing. It's free. I said, ma'am, did you just get married? Oh, I did. Well, Brenda, tell me a little bit about it. She told me. She said, I'm from Oxford. My husband and I just moved up here. We're starting our life together. I said, wonderful. And I said, you know a lot about the area? Really, not a lot. I said, would you know about the school over here? And I started talking, and she said, yes. She said, oh, sir, can I interrupt you for a minute? I said, sure. She said, sir, got a question. She said, sir, she says, my husband and I, we don't have a church home. I said, you don't? And I said, well. She said, sir, I got a question. Do you know anything about the Bible? I said, just a little bit. She said, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. Daniel, get up. This man, I don't know what he does all day. Every time he gets home from work, he gets on the couch, he goes to bed. I don't know what he does. Daniel, get up. There are guests here. Daniel is 6'4". Daniel comes over to me, and I'm looking at Daniel, and Daniel looks down at me. And I'm going to try to reenact what this woman did. Let me see if I can do this. She looks at me and Daniel, and she's looking like this. She says, Daniel, we're going to teach you the Bible. You could have blown me over. Now, what happens? Watch the slide. We baptized 7. If you learn how to use the tools, they work. If you don't use the tools right, they don't. You got to learn how to use the tools, brethren. You got to be trained. I want you to develop a target list. Everybody in this room, and you're going to be doing that very soon. I think it's going to happen on a Sunday morning. And I think this whole church, I think you're going to have a target list very soon. Everybody needs one. Who are you bringing to Christ? What's her name? What's his name? I want to know who they are. Everybody in this audience right now needs a target list. You know what a hunter told me once? My son was about 12, 13 years old, and I wanted to get close to my son. I think every father wants to get close to their son. I'm not going to get close to my son in my office. My son's an outdoorsman. I can be an outdoorsman. I went to a man by the name of Shane Smith. Shane Smith lived in Bridgeport, Alabama. Shane Smith writes for one of the biggest hunting magazines in the country. He's a faithful Christian. I said, Shane, I need to get close to my son. I need help. My son's an outdoorsman. I said, I can hunt, but I'm not very good at it. Would you teach us? He said, Rob, he says, come see me. I brought my son, and we went up to Shane, and Shane started teaching us how to hunt. He is incredibly good. Never seen a man that can call an animal, and the animal comes to him. It's unbelievable. Shane said, Jared, I got a lesson for you. And Jared said, what is it, Mr. Shane? He said, you'll never hit a target you don't aim at. Pretty good lesson, isn't it? You'll never hit a target you don't aim at. Brother, who you aiming at? Who you aiming at right now? What's his name? We got to do that, Johnny, or we won't make it. This cannot be just a lecture. Brother, you got to get busy. We'll train you how to knock doors. We'll guarantee. Oh, you said, preacher, be careful about that word. I'll guarantee 25% success rate at the door. But you got to do the training. I've done it all over the country. In fact, this week in Reaching the Lost, you'll read a church that tried what we taught them. They had a 30% success rate. I had a church in Oklahoma, and the preacher said, Rob, of all the things you've taught, the one thing I don't believe is what you teach on door knocking. It will not work in Coweta. He doesn't say that anymore. They baptized a whole family when we did it. It works, but you got to know what you're doing. New movers. How many new families are moving right around this church building? I mapped it. I got the numbers. You know how many families are moving right here around your church building every month? You have 11 families moving here every single month. Why not Hillcrest be the first church that knocks on their door? You know, today people don't really care where they go to church. They don't care. They just want to go to a church that cares about them. So what if these young men and some of your young ladies on Sunday afternoons went to introduce themselves to these new movers? And right now my wife is teaching your ladies how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. They've never done God-authorized shopping in their life, and now they're ready. Elders, get ready. They're coming to you. They're going to go shopping in the name of the Lord, and they're going to put new mover baskets together. And they're going to ask you, we need funds for new mover baskets. And you're going to send them to the Dollar Tree. Brethren, you can buy the entire Dollar Tree and still be okay. We're going to put these baskets together, and we're going to send our young people to the door. And we're going to say, hey, welcome to Springfield. My name's John. This is my mom, or this is my friend. And we just want to welcome you to the area. And we got a little gift from our youth group. What kind of reception do you think you're going to get? Thinking they're going to cuss you? They're going to slam the door in your face? No. Let me read you what David Shannon said about this. David Shannon said, people are most likely to change churches when they move. A couple of generations ago, if a couple or a family or an individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed in that same denomination. Those days are over. It doesn't matter what denomination they were in the last town. Your average person today is willing to look at any church in their neighborhood. This is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. It doesn't matter to me what church they were a part of in the last town. I want them to visit the church of Christ, because it gives us the best opportunity to sit down and study the Word of God. Would you like to know where they live? Because I've got the list. I got their name and address. Would you like it? How many of you want that information? Put your hands down. How many of you own a business? Anybody here own a business? What do you own? What kind of shop? Say it again. Collision. Yes. If I went up to you when you first opened, go back to your first open, and I came up to you and said, sir, I said, my name's Rob, and I got a way of giving you the name and address of every person who moves around your shop, and it's going to cost you $2. $2. Would you like that list? Why? Because what do you need? Customers. Without customers, what happens to your business? Without contact, what happens to the church, gentlemen? We go home. Jesus said, I must be about my Father's. I think if some of us would run with passion, the same passion we run our businesses, if we take that passion and put it in the pews, and we take that same passion in our churches, can you imagine, brethren, take the success you've had in life and channel that talent and energy and raise an army of soul winners. And let's see the church of Christ grow. You guys already know the value of cards. When your deacons last night, I was so impressed. I wanted to hug him. I don't know where he's at. Where's that deacon I was talking to last night? I almost hugged him. And because I tell you what, that's an incredible work that you guys do. Cards will open the hearts of people unlike any tool you use. You've seen the good it does for this church. Imagine if we sent a card to every person who moved into this community and we welcomed them. You think that'd make a difference? Brethren, the possibilities are unlimited. Her name's Bettina. I walked inside. One of the elders said, Rob, while you were gone, there was a lady that we reached out to. And Rob, we've been sending her cards. You want to go make the visit? It's called the transition. I said, yes. My wife and I walked in, and I walked into her house. She had these cards everywhere. I never ask questions I don't know the answers to. I said, Miss Bettina, where did all these cards come from? That church, that Jacksonville church where you, that they send me, I've got 43 cards from that church. I said, really? She said, yes. I said, and Nicole said, I think that one, Bettina, we sent you, really? And I said, yes. And so she's telling us about the cards. I said, Bettina, I said, got a question for you. What is it? I said, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Oh, I love it. Nicest church. Bettina, number 2, transition. Do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? No, not a lot. Question number 3, transition. Bettina, would you like to know more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? She said, I kind of would. Get ready. Here we go. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. I just so happen to have, see, they're prepared, these little booklets. It's not that hard. All you got to do is care. You got to care. You got to make the transition, and that's what happens. I had to call Alan Webster because she was on oxygen. I needed help with the baptism. He was right there. What's the number one thing a visitor wants when they walk into your church building? What's the number one thing? I'm going to end right here. What's the number one thing a visitor wants when they walk in? Anybody know? You want to take a guess? They walk in, what do they want? They want to be welcomed. Good answer. What else do they want? Love. Good answer. They walk in. You're not going to get it. They walk in. If I say it like this, you'll probably get it. When you guys visit other churches, Johnny, when you visit another church, kind of awkward, you don't know where to go. You walk in. Be honest. Please don't give me what you think I want. Be yourself. When you walk in with your family, what do you want to do? Thank you. Pew Research Center did a poll, and the poll question was, when you visit a church, what's the number one thing you want to do? The overwhelming answer was sit down. They do not want to be accosted at the door. They don't want the man with the earpiece and his gun belt on the right-hand side. We all know what you're carrying, fellas. And with the earpieces, we got a strange one here coming in door number 2. Do a quick check. Let's make sure he's got a backpack. Let's make sure. Keep an eye on him. Go into the bathroom. They don't want any of that. I realize we have to do some security. I'm not making fun. I'm so thankful we've got security. But brethren, you know, what a visitor wants, sit down. We should let them. We should have door greeters that, hey, our auditorium's right through these doors right here. You know, even though y'all have a simple layout, when I walked in, I didn't know where to go. I mean, I didn't. But if there were a couple guys like Johnny there, hey, our auditorium's right through the door right here. That's all you got to do. And then we train a dozen people on what to say, what not to say, how to get contact information. I'll tell you what, visitors make some of the greatest contacts. They're hot contacts. You know why they're hot? Because they come to you. I've taken too much time tonight, but I just can't hardly help it. I love evangelism. I love you. And I love the Church of Christ. Love the brotherhood. May God help us, men. May God help us. May God help the Church of Christ to grow. Thank you.